So we've been talking about the word ephemeral today. Remember, that means something that doesn't last very long. And out here on our family property we have a few wetlands that we've actually installed. So they're man-made wetlands. But these are what we consider ephemeral because they don't hold water all year. They only hold water for wet periods. And so this is one of our wetlands that I was standing in front of, and some of the plants that have come in to grow in this wetland, this shrub behind me is buttonbush, and that's a wetland plant. Some of you might remember walking around on the school property, we have some buttonbush growing there as well. And some small blue flag iris are starting to come up behind me also. So these are wetland plants, and botanists can use the placement of plants to figure out where wetlands exist, even if they don't look wet all times of the year. So that's one of the reasons we know that our school property is a wetland, because of some of the plants that grow there. But this is an ephemeral wetland. There are tadpoles in here. I'm going to show you some of those in a few minutes. And some of the frogs prefer to use these ephemeral wetlands because there's no fish in them, because the water dries up. So the tadpoles are able to have a nice habitat as they are aquatic, and then of course later they turn into terrestrial creatures, which means they come out and live on land. So we have several different kinds of tadpoles in here right now. In the weeks past we've been hearing spring peepers and chorus frogs and wood frogs. So it's possible that all three types of tadpoles are living in this wetland right now. So that's pretty exciting. Today I wanted to show you something that you could probably find close to your house, even if you live in town. We have a lot of toads out here near our pond, and they've been mating and laying eggs. And what's interesting about toads, they sort of lay their eggs in these zigzaggy strings. So you can really kind of pick them out differently from other kinds of amphibians. And toads will more readily lay their eggs in ponds because their tadpoles are not tasty to fish, and so they're able to survive pretty well even after they hatch out. Some of the other frogs don't like to lay their eggs in ponds as well because their tadpoles are very tasty to fish. So I'm going to try to find you some other frogs to show you, but I wanted to show you this great mass of toad eggs that we have here. So I think we'll have plenty of young toads here in the coming months. So this is another one of our ephemeral wetlands. This one has a little bit of a different character. It's got a lot of cottonwood trees growing in it. But we were able to find these masses of frog eggs, and we think these are wood frogs. And these look a lot different than the toad ones that I showed you. Those, remember, were zigzaggy strings, and these are in more big clumpy masses. And the tadpoles are coming out of the eggs right now. There's tons of tadpoles around here, and they're trying to fight their way out of those eggs. They also feed on that jelly-like substance, so that's one of the first things they eat after they hatch out. So there's lots of them gathered around here that have already hatched out that are feeding on that. So it's a pretty cool find. Alright, so we dipped a small container of water out of the ephemeral wetland so you could maybe get a close-up view of some of the aquatic life that's living in here. The tadpoles are kind of hiding towards the bottom, so I'm going to try and see what I can do here. Okay, so here's a tadpole. I don't know what species he is. He's larger than some of the other ones in the bucket. It's possible he is a wood frog, or it's possible that he's a spring peeper or a chorus frog. It's probably hard to see. This water's pretty murky. But there's a lot of small insect larvae also swimming around in this water. Here's one coming up to the edge, to the top right there. Those look like possibly mosquito larvae or midge larvae. There's some aquatic beetle larva in here that I saw a minute ago. So maybe I'll have to do that for another video sometime. Take them and put them in a petri dish or maybe into the microscope so you can get a look at those. Those are some of the things that also like to nest or reproduce in ephemeral wetlands so they don't get eaten by fish. But they're really cool to look at. So we scooped a little bit of water out of this wetland and we found this little tiny crawdad in there, crayfish if you will. He was swimming pretty fast, but we nabbed him near some leaves, so I thought you might get a kick out of looking at him. I'm gonna let him go. There he goes. Again, in one of our ephemeral wetlands, we found this egg mass which had larvae in it. Thought it was frogs, but when we scooped it up we realized that these are actually salamander larvae. They have a different look to them. They look almost more fish-like, a little longer bodies, and they look like they're probably very, very ready to hatch out and become free swimming pretty soon. But each one has their own individual cell inside this jelly mass, and it was a pretty cool find for April the 2nd. So I'm going to let this little fairy shrimp go because I don't want to kill it and let it back into the water. So we had a cool find here in this ephemeral wetland today. It's a fairy shrimp. We've actually seen several. We were able to catch that one. Fairy shrimp are freshwater invertebrates, and they only live in ephemeral wetlands, and they actually are adapted to living in ephemeral wetlands that may not even be wet every year. Their eggs can lay dormant for a number of years until the wetland gets enough water in it eventually. So we've had a really wet spring. This particular wetland on our family property is one of the more shallow ones that doesn't always hold water very well, and so it was pretty exciting to find that fairy shrimp. Something unique.